When we think of Egypt, we think of pyramids. The civilization of ancient Egypt spans some 3,000 years. Of that, a full 1,000 years was the era of the pyramids. They were built as royal tombs, and the largest of them were the tombs of the pharaohs. Here, near Giza, the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu is the largest pyramid ever built. People today refer to it simply as the Great Pyramid. It shows its age now, but when it was new, it looked quite different. Its sides were perfectly smooth. The pyramid had a surface of limestone so highly polished, it must have hurt to look directly at it. Deep inside were the burial chambers and the passages leading to them. Here, protected by impenetrable stone in all directions, the body of Khufu was laid to rest. The pharaoh Khufu died more than 4,500 years ago. In the years that passed, the monument he had built to honor his name stood as the tallest building in the world. The ages continued to roll by, but still nothing could rival it. 4,000 years would pass before the advent of the first great Gothic cathedrals. In the last century, we have come to take for granted the sight of enormous buildings towering over us. But the Great Pyramid still astounds us, both for its size and for the amazing precision of its construction. Imagine walking almost a kilometer to get around a building. Modern engineers have carefully measured this colossal square. The four sides show a difference in length that is less than the spread of your hand. One corner is out of level by the thickness of a finger. And apart from the burial chambers and the tunnels leading to them, it is a solid mass of stone. It rises almost 50 stories. Within this 50-story mountain is enough building stone to fill 700,000 trucks, each carrying 10 tons. Each of these blocks weighs, on average, 2.5 tons. The Egyptians at that time did not use cranes or pulleys, and they had no wheeled vehicles. How did they move 2 1/3 million stones into position? How did they do it? People have been asking that question for over 4,000 years, and they are still asking it today. Will the puzzle of the Great Pyramid ever be solved? Since the Great Pyramid was completed, more than 4,500 years ago, the method used to build it has remained a mystery. Even today, no one can agree on how it was made. When the Egyptians needed to move a heavy object, they put it on a flat sled and pulled it along a dirt road made slick with water. So the real challenge was not how to move heavy objects, but how to take more than 2 million heavy objects and move them up. Egyptian builders had used ramps on smaller projects before this. What we don't know is, was the Great Pyramid built using ramps? For the answer, we have to rely on our imagination. And this is the simplest kind of ramp to imagine. Each time the pyramid grows by a layer, the ramp grows with it. The ramp must get not only higher, but longer each time, or the slope will become too steep. Over the 20 years or so that it took to build the pyramid, this ramp would have had to be rebuilt more than 200 times. At some point, the ramp building would begin to take more time than the pyramid building. By this point, the ramp would contain 3 or 4 times more material than the pyramid itself. It would stretch out for almost 2 kilometers. It's a simple enough structure to imagine in principle. In practical terms, a ramp this monstrous could never have been completed. There is another way to build a ramp up a pyramid, and that's to wrap it around. It's no longer an independent structure. This ramp sits on the pyramid itself. This is sometimes called the 4-ramp theory, because it describes 4 ramps in use at the same time. 3 for going up and 1 for going down. Using the simplest of tools, the Egyptians had to be able to transport 40 stones every hour and move them into position. If the ramps leveled off at the corners, it would have been easier to get around the tight turns. With the pyramid almost complete, there would no longer be room for 4 ramps, and no need either. 1 ramp could finish the job, along with a platform for working on. There was a pyramid hidden under all this ramp construction. We just couldn't see it. The builders wouldn't have been able to see the whole pyramid either. They could only have seen the layer they were working on at the time. But then how would they have kept the sides lined up so accurately? Like every theory, this one has its share of unanswered questions. Even so, this theory probably stands a better chance of working than many others. The tomb of Khufu has given birth to countless explanations of how it might have been built. But the puzzle of the Great Pyramid is still a long way from being solved.
The language of the ancient Egyptians has been silent for close to 2,000 years. The only record we have of that language is contained in the beautiful and intricate system of writing that we call hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs have intrigued people for centuries. These mysterious images still stand as a link between us and the Egyptian people who lived so long ago. Hieroglyphs are not what they seem to be. This was not simple picture writing, but in fact almost all of the signs represented sounds. They had no meaning by themselves, but when they were put together, they spelled words, ancient Egyptian words, of course. Today, no one is quite sure how some of these words sounded, because in Egyptian writing, the vowel sounds were left out. For example, to spell this word, there were only the signs for R and M. Placed together, these signs could have had more than one pronunciation and more than one meaning. Did this mean rime or reim? An idea sign added after the sound signs made it possible to recognize the word that was intended. Rime, to cry. Reim, fish. Most Egyptian words were written this way. First, the sound was spelled out, and then an extra sign at the end helped to indicate the meaning. This word means to be silent. This is the word for sacred boat. This means to enter. This spells the word for hard. The sole of the foot. Wind or breath. Some groups of signs stand out from the others because of the oval frame around them. This special treatment was reserved for the names of royalty. Here is the name of a famous queen. The first sign, an animal's heart and aorta, represents the sounds N, F, R. Nefer. Next, a loaf of bread, the sign for T. A flowering reed with human legs, the sound E. A pestle, T. Finally, a sign that indicates a queen. Nefer, T, E, T. Nefertiti. It meant, the beautiful woman has come. Beauty was highly valued by the ancient Egyptians. A scribe was also an artist, and although the first purpose of the hieroglyphs was to record words, they were also meant to be looked at. They had to look beautiful. For each word, the signs were carefully composed so that they fit together, always forming a compact square or rectangle. Open gaps and blank spots were thought to spoil the look of the text, so there were no spaces between the words or sentences. The scribe had a choice of direction in which to write. The text might run horizontally in lines or vertically in columns, and it could start from either the left or the right. The signs themselves were reversible, but were drawn so that they all faced the same way, toward the beginning of the text. If most people today see hieroglyphs as a complete mystery, the same was true for most people in ancient Egypt. Reading and writing belonged to an elite profession and required long years of training and study. You've had less than 5 minutes, but you have already started to learn about the signs and symbols we call hieroglyphs, and which the ancient Egyptians called the words of the god.